Welcome to the Rich Relationship Podcast with Gil
and Renee, where amazing things happen. Our goal is to help build, repair, and restore healthy relationships.
Our primary focus is on the marriage relationship. However, the topics are applicable to the relationships that we value most. Remember, we're stronger together.
Let's grow. You know, the Bible tells us that he that finds a wife finds a good thing. And so I believe that everything that God does is good. We have reached episode 16, and this episode is going to be hot, honest, open, and transparent. This episode is about sex expectations and intimacy in relationships. It's called After the Honeymoon. So, are you ready for this show, Gil?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yes, it will be.
Let's go to the show.
Yes. You know, there is so much going on in the media and in our culture, and this isn't something new. It's something about us as humans that we think that we can create a counterculture or we can have a sex revolution. Well, I just personally believe that the Bible doesn't need to be revolutionized. I don't believe that God needs counterculture. I believe that when He created us, He created a plan for us. Because as I said earlier, the Bible says that he that finds a wife finds a good thing. And so I believe that everything that God does is good. And, you know, our last episode was really good. It talked about dysfunctional relationships. And I think that that was kind of the birthplace for this show. Because, you know, Gil and I, you and I talked about this a lot as far as just my own being transparent, my own inhibitions. As long as we've been married, I still have all these childhood of origin issues about making love. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that this would be a good time for us to really talk about sex as it relates to the marriage relationship.
And that's a good point to make because, and as our listeners know, this isn't necessarily a religious type program that we try to put out, but because we are Christians,
yes,
we are influenced by the things that we put out.
And there is a difference between religion and relationship.
Absolutely. And the reason why I say that is because we like to include scriptures and references and those types of things, but also talk about conversations that is just normal.
Right.
That's a normal part of life. And as we were doing research and talking about this subject, you know, and even in time and reading, and 1 Corinthians chapter 7, 3 and 5 says, the husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs, and his wife should fulfill her husband's needs. The wife gives authority over her body to her husband, and her husband gives authority over his body to his wife. Do not deprive each other of sexual relationship.
And I love that it says each other.
Right.
Because I think sometimes women can feel like it's just the man that wants sex. And God created us both with appetites and desires. And for us being at later stages in our life, those appetites and desires are going to change.
Yeah.
And so you have to really understand that there's a difference between intercourse and intimacy. And so, you know, because there is definitely a difference between sex, intimacy, and sex expectations. Mm-hmm. And so many times, all those dynamics are going to be different at different stages in our life. And so one of my favorite, like you gave the scripture reference that you gave, my favorite reference about sex in a marriage, one of them is Genesis 2:25, and it says that Adam and Eve were together and they were naked and they were not ashamed. Mm-hmm. Because that is something that it can take years to develop into, you know, and it's a journey. It's not an event. And so the reason why we talk about after the honeymoon is because, think about it, who talked to you about the honeymoon before the honeymoon?
Right.
Who taught you the birds and the bees? Who talked to you about sex? Did you have a positive role model, an example of what sex was like, or was it negative? And I know for me, it was very negative.
You know, sex is a topic that makes people blush.
Yes.
It makes them kind of squeamish. Sometimes it makes them even guarded.
Yes.
And even when you think about it from a marital relationship, it's something to think about in the context of a relationship, because it is a vital part of the relationship. I think about the first time we had our first romantic encounter, and I'll preface this because, and I'll say this, we had sexual relationships before we got married.
Right.
But we were also not Christians and not following Christ and those things like we are now.
Right.
So I wanted to preface that to say, we haven't always been this way as far as Christians and trying to live a Christian lifestyle. We are also just living life.
Right.
So,
because we didn't both grow up in Christian homes.
No, not at all. And one of the things that I kind of was thinking about was, but our first encounter was totally voided of intimacy, I think, looking back at it now, knowing what I know now.
Right.
You know, and like you made that point, it's very important that you know about that, because there is a difference, and we're going to get into some of those differences between intimacy and just sexual relationships and those things, and kind of give you some pointers and some markers to kind of identify those
where
things.
You are.
Right, because that's what we always kind of go back to, start out where you're at. Because I'm sure everyone who's listening is not married.
Right.
And they're single, and they still are going through things in their relationships before they get to that point, if they get to that point. But there are things that you need to be doing and thinking about and going through now before you get to that point. And that's what we're trying to do, is equip you with information and things to think about and things that can help you that we did not have.
Right.
Like you just made that point about having parents and maybe some significant people in your life that could give you some guidance and those types of things. It's such a topic that most people don't even like to talk about.
No.
You know?
And to me, I really believe that whatever topics you don't talk about, you leave it open to someone else to fill in the blanks for you. So we did always try to talk to Aaron about sex, about our views and our values and what we believed was right. But at the end of the day, and you have to keep, I think with your children, you have to keep reiterating to them and reminding them of what your values are. Because if you don't teach them what you believe about it, then someone else is going to teach them. Mm-hmm. And so it's important that you have that ongoing conversation with your children. And, you know, looking back on it now, I think we share more of our values than our experiences.
Right.
And talking about sex openly, because I know for me, I still have, that's one of those subjects that it still makes me blush. It's still, and so as we got ready for this show, I began to ask questions. Well, why? You know, one of the things, you know, you and I talk about, babe, is why are women of color more likely to have sexual inhibitions than other nationalities? And I think it goes back to the lack of education about it.
Now, I know you said that, but do you think it's a woman of color issue that are inhibited?
I'll say culturally. I think that some cultures are more conservative as far as, like, I think as a culture, it's a lot of things we don't talk about, period.
Right.
And so I think that when you have open communication in other areas, it makes it easier for you to have open communication in sex. Mm-hmm. But I think that because, like we talked about in the last episode, I came from a very dysfunctional family. Yeah, and we don't realize the effect that if you kind of search back and do some tracking into what are some of the origins or the causes of problems in relationships, poor communication, and also when you add sex before you're married, it makes relationships very complicated and very sticky, because you've taken something that God designed to be used in this one context, and you're using it in every context, and so then it gets polluted and it causes so many problems. And so I just believe that sex is something that God designed for marriage for a reason, and I'll share that reason later on. But most people don't believe that. They think that God is just trying to keep something from you, and that's really not the case. Right. It's really anything that God values, He puts parameters and boundaries on, because when you add sex, it makes relationships challenging. It makes it challenging. It really does.
And what I was kind of alluding to it before was, when you are going through the dating stage, let's go all the way back before we were married, just to put it in a different perspective, because I think that's where it's important to start out, because nobody starts out married.
Right.
You start out as a single individual. Right. And one of the things that I think about is, as I thought about this, was what could we do, or what information could we share that could kind of give some single people some things to think about.
Right.
that may be listening, if you're in a relationship, a dating relationship, something that you can take and even start those conversations about. Because I think back to a point that you just made, when we were just dating, we were also monogamous in the sense that we were exclusive, as they may say to this day, where we had made a commitment to be exclusive to each other. And we didn't look for those things outside of our relationship to fulfill us outside of each other.
Right.
You know, because just like you just mentioned, when you use sex outside of the way God designed it between a husband and wife, you're going to cloud it. It's going to get confusing, and it's going to be difficult in your relationships. And those are the kind of things that you bring into when you bring another entity, or it could be hobbies or whatever. I mean, it may be pornography, it may be just fantasies, or anything that you have to bring into the relationship to kind of make it work. That can kind of cause problems
because you're not accepting that person in the essence of who they are. You're comparing them to an imagination.
Right, and it starts with your thoughts.
It does.
It starts with your thoughts, and in your thought life, it's very important to know that, because in your thought life, that's where the origin of a lot of things start, especially when it comes to kind of blurring the lines in your sexual relationships, or things that kind of come into mind. But some of the premarital questions that you can kind of talk about and engage with someone that you may be even dating, and I wish we would have, and I think we kind of talked about some of this stuff when we were just dating.
You don't know what you don't know.
Right. And what I was going to bring out is some of the examples of things that you can talk about, just some talking points. What was your attitude towards sex in your family? Was it even talked about?
Right. Yeah, we were just told, don't do it.
Right. And where did you learn about sex? I think about it from the context. I had you had a class in school, home health. I think we called it back then health class.
I had sex
and
education.
It was just such a small, and it was such a small piece of the educational process. They talk more from a scientific side of it, with reproduction, and I remember them showing the STD video about STDs that you could get from it, and I was like, oh my God, that didn't make me want to even engage when you see what some of the things that look like that can happen to your genitals and all those kind of things. It was almost like a scare tactic.
It was.
To think about it.
And I remember one of the things that they said, because I actually had sex education. There was like I think it was just like a one-time thing. But I remember one of the things that he asked, he said, how many of you young men want to marry a virgin? And all the guys raised their hands. And at the time, we didn't really, virgin, non-virgin, what does that mean?
That was pretty bold. That guy probably would be thrown out of class.
Yeah.
School
he said,
now.
how many of you would like to marry a virgin? Well, all the guys raised their hands. And he said, well, how many of you are having sex?
Right.
And those same guys raised their hands. And what he said, now I didn't go to a Christian school. I went to a Detroit public school. He said, if you're having sex with a female, you're having sex with someone else's virgin. And I was like, wow.
That's one way to put it, yeah.
Yeah. And so if you want to marry a virgin, then you shouldn't be having sex, because you're having sex with somebody else's virgin.
Right. And even thinking about that, even or in a dating relationship, again, these are some of the things to talk about, have you disclosed your sexual history to your partner?
Right.
If not, why not?
Right.
There may be some things there that you may not be proud of, but if this person that you're going to be engaging with this type of intimacy or intimate type of relationship, that's something that you should discuss.
And that's why sex outside of the confines of marriage becomes a problem, is because it creates shame. It creates you having to keep secrets. It keeps you from being intimate with people, because you don't want them to know. You think that if they know this about you, they may not want to be in a relationship with you.
Right.
So it's not just about don't do it because the Bible says don't do it. It's because it's a form of protection.
Right.
It allows you to have a clean slate. And even if you don't do it the way God designed it, because like we said, we didn't do it the way God designed it. We were not married when we first started having sex. However, we've been together as a couple since we were 18 years old.
Right.
And you've been my only and I've been your only.
Mm-hmm.
And so a part of that is the more people you add to the equation, the more complicated it becomes emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically.
Right. And even another question to ask is discussing your ideals and your thoughts on family planning.
Right.
You know, I think you even mentioned in one of the episodes where initially you didn't even want to have kids.
No.
You know, and so that's something to talk about even going into the relationship, even if you're in the dating stage. I don't think it's too soon to start. I'm not saying like on a first date, like
no.
Once you say, hey, how you doing? Do you want to have kids?
Right.
That'll be
that might scare the other person
right,
away.
Right. Regardless of which direction it come from. But
right.
It's just something that you still need to engage with and talk as your relationship becomes more serious. But you said something here just a second ago. Everybody has sexual baggage.
Yes.
You know, that it comes in that you should be discussing with your partner.
Right.
And
even when you think about the sex expectations, you know, we did an episode, Hope versus Expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Another downside to having sex outside of marriage or having multiple partners or having sex with more than one person at one time is you fall into the comparison trap.
Mm-hmm.
You start comparing that person to the other person. But if you have to have more than one person, there's a reason why.
Right.
That person may not be the person for you, but along the way, you're giving away a part of yourself that you could never get back.
Right. And by that giving away part, you having these thoughts and these fantasies and these ideals about someone, that can be a real major setback in a relationship.
Because you can't be present.
Because we talked about having that baggage or things that you don't talk about. And I wrote this down. Secrecy is the enemy to intimacy.
Yes, it is.
If you want to grow closer, this is talking now, if it goes to the approach to when you become a spouse, you have to think about this inside and outside of the bedroom. Bring your secrets out into the open and encourage your spouse to do the same. Because exposure to those things are what's going to bring healing. It's what's going to bring wholeness. You know, and we talk about it over and over again. Communication is such a vital thing, and we're going to mention that a little bit more here later in the show. But that's something that you have to think about.
You know, one of the things, you know, are you finished with
your
questions?
Go ahead. Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I think that we don't realize, and I didn't really realize this when I was younger, was that in all the relationships that you have, sex is what makes your marriage different from all your other relationships, because your spouse is your only legitimate source of intimacy, sexual intimacy and sexual fulfillment. And God designed it that way for a reason. And it is because, and this is just my own, you know, it's not the gospel, it's just my own
It's the gospel
understanding.
according to Renee.
Yes, is that, and we talked about this and I said it before, is that I really believe that sex is the mystery of marriage. It's what allows you to not see the other person, to see all their flaws. Because I believe that when you have sex with someone, you no longer can be objective. You can't see them the way that they really are. You see them the way you want them to be. I believe that sex makes the other person not perfect, but flawless. And so when we talk about couples who are having problems in their relationship, the first question you start asking, when was the last time you made love to that person? When was the last time you spent spent money on that person? Because those are the things that connect us and keep us close. And so when you think about just, you know, little things like that, it makes you understand that sex, intimacy, those are gifts to your marriage. They're gifts to keep you connected and to keep you closer and to allow you to have the grace to be together for a long time.
No, yeah, absolutely. And one thing that you mentioned there about how you view sex, and I think one of the things that men tend to view sex as a stress reliever. You know, when you think about when you're kind of stressed out about something, as they say, our mind can gravitate towards sex very easily, where I think women see stress reliever. They have to be de-stressed.
Yes.
Before they can even get into the mode or even the mindset of wanting to engage in a sexual interaction. That's something that is kind of, and I think we talked about that before, where you may have the right intentions. Maybe you have woken up or had throughout the day, and we're going to talk about some of the things and habits and practices that you can do to get to the point of engaging before you even engage into the most intimate part of sex. But you engage in mindsets before you even get there. That I think when speaking specifically about you, if you're stressed out about issues and stuff that is going on throughout life, forget it.
Yeah.
It ain't happening.
Yeah.
Ain't no action gonna happen in the bedroom.
Yes.
You know, and that took a while for me to understand, because I was like, hold up. Whoa, time out.
Just say, I need you.
Yeah, I mean, I get that things are going on and it's crazy right now. And if I'm thinking about it from my perspective, this can relax you, babe. This can make you go,
right.
As that old commercial way back in the day, Calgon Take Me Away, that taking a bath. Oh, this will definitely take you away.
And I think that's the beauty of the male-female relationship, because while you understand that, and just like you've taught me, like you always say, I taught you to connect with your feelings. You've taught me to connect with my sexuality. And I think that is the husband's role. I think that's the man's role, is to teach the woman how to be okay with her sexuality and to see it as a way. And I love, we were reading something that says, sex is some place you go and not something that you do.
Right.
And when you begin to learn that, you realize that, hey, wow, next time. But women normally use things versus intimacy. Or I'm going to go shopping to relieve stress, or I'm going to eat to relieve stress, or I'm going to do something. And I love that. Making love is a place that you go to and not something that you do. And you've helped me to learn that.
Well, I can't take credit for teaching you sexuality, about what it is to be in touch with your sexuality. I would like to hope I can maybe contribute it to.
Yes.
And I say it jokingly, but more from the standpoint of to be comfortable with who you are. Everything from the crown of your head to the sole of your feet, to where the body that you have. And I think body image and it's always seems like it's always a thing with women, to where they're always so concerned about the perfect body
men don't
and how
care
their
about
body
that.
and I mean, the guys, man, all you got to be is naked.
Yeah, that's
good enough for me.
Yeah,
you know, but and you dress it up, you know, whether it's with lingerie or those types of things, if you like role playing, costumes, whatever. You know, I say it jokingly, and not jokingly, but reality like is, I see it as, you put any frame around the Mona Lisa, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I love that you said
it's
that.
It's still
That's
the
so
Mona
sweet.
Lisa. I'm not looking at the frame.
I know.
It's still the Mona Lisa. You're still my Mona Lisa, to where I see you in your entirety, not because of shortcomings or imperfections or things that you may have an issue with.
Right.
I'm not thinking about that, because guess what? Guys can suffer from body images, especially after you get older as a guy. You know, your testosterone slows down and those types of things, and maybe you don't have the physique that you used to have, and you maybe not as physically appealing as you used to be. That still doesn't change the fact, you know, of what you see in your spouse or your wife, which is very, very important.
Yeah. Okay, babe. So I have a question for you.
Okay. Now, this is totally unrehearsed. I have no idea what's coming, but go ahead.
Okay. Why do you think Christians don't prize sex as a gift from God, but they see it as sin?
I think a part of it is, you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, once you become a Christian, or you change, the Bible talks about you becoming a new creation, but that doesn't purge your mind from all of your old life experiences.
No. And some things God doesn't want to get rid of. He put it there.
Right. I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of your memories or your interactions that you've had in the past. I think all those things still come into play to your today, to where you have to think about, or you go through situations like you just asked with the question, is it can be a hindrance because of some of the bad things that you did, just like we talked about ourselves, where we were engaging in sexual intercourse and interrelationships before we were married. So we were doing it out of the context of how the Bible and how God designed it. So that is in a form of sin.
Right.
So I still think about that from that standpoint, and that kind of plays into my viewpoint of it today, to where all those things have been passed away.
Right.
That's swept away. If you've given your life to Christ, that's gone.
Right.
It doesn't exist anymore, but that doesn't purge your memory from it.
Right. Exactly.
You know, it doesn't purge your memory to where I can't remember it anymore.
Right.
And we still kind of hold on to those things more than I think anything else.
Right.
That we have to play it out and let it go, you know, to the point where it doesn't hinder us in our relationships that we have today.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I remember one of the things that Pastor John said, and it's helped me in our relationship. He said that if you ever feel like you've gotten too holy to make love to your husband, you are missing God.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that can be.
Yeah, because the Bible makes countless references to be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah.
You know, the Songs of Solomon.
Even just like the scripture we used at the beginning.
Right. Being naked and not ashamed. So I think that from a biblical worldview, we have to begin to prize sex as a gift that God gives to marriage in order to help us to enjoy each other, to help us to connect. It is an act of worship.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I want to hear somebody from church ministering while I'm making love, but it is an act of worship. It's a way for us to connect on a level that I could only connect with you with.
Mm-hmm. And even when you think about that, and I agree with you with everything that you just said 100%. And I have a part two to that question that you asked just a second ago. I think a part two to that is some of the things that we've done in the past play into our future or our today. One of them is using sex as a weapon. Right.
Yes.
If that's happening in a relationship, that can be a part of a problem.
Yes. On either side, either if you're withholding it to control or if someone is abusing you.
Is. It's all about control.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you're in an abusive type, that's something definitely seek out authorities and professionals to help you in that situation. But over time, in that sex as a weapon, it cheapens your relationship. It builds resentment. Mm-hmm. It builds lack of trust.
Right.
Because that is so important to intimacy. I think is the epitome of intimacy is trusting of your spouse.
Yeah.
You know, and if that is gone or it's been eroded or it's been perverted through control and manipulation, or even been used in a form of punishment,
right,
that can be a very, very big mountain to overcome in the future of a relationship.
Or adultery.
Oh, man.
Adding someone else to the equation. You know, and I do believe that the Bible says that it is grounds for divorce, but it doesn't mean you have to get a divorce.
Right.
You have to be able to, each person has to be able to make the decision to move past that. But that's a decision that you both have to make. No one else should have to make that decision for you.
Right. And that's really, really important to understand. And you got to get to know each other and not make assumptions about those things that happen.
And even now, as long as we've been together, having those kind of conversations, you know, well, what do you like? You know, what are the things that I do that turn you on?
Right.
What are the things that I do that are a turn off?
Right.
You know?
Hey, we're going to get into some of those.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, we got some God Wisdom, God Question segment of the show that we're going to share with everybody.
Well, good. It's that time.
So, coming up on this
First, let's just say thank you to everybody.
Yes.
We've been missing that. We got to say thank you.
Yes.
I just believe that gratitude is the key to success.
Yes.
And so we are so grateful for all of our listeners, for people who listen and share and call in and who are just a part of our community. We're so grateful, and we're really grateful to have this platform. It's growing, and we're reaching more and more people, and we're so grateful to be a part, whether you know us or you don't. We appreciate you.
Right.
Thank you for listening every week and for sharing the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And And you're absolutely 100% correct. It is important that we do thank everyone who's listening. And the couple people that I've actually had come up to me and say, I listened to the show, I listened to the show. And awesome. It's kind of great to hear, not from a, oh, check me out, that kind of thing. Right. But it's one person actually told me it was interesting and it helped them think about something that they were going through. And I was like, wow. That's so you're awesome. Actually helping, so that's important. So you're correct. Thank you.
Because one of our listeners told us we should put music during this segment, and that's when we do it. So we want your feedback, and we thank you for it. Thank you for telling us what you need.
So this is where you do your got questions, got wisdom, got questions, and it's that time. And I don't know if you have a question yet or not, but I do have wisdom.
Okay.
This is from Dwayne, and Dwayne just celebrated his 37th year anniversary, and we were talking about it, and I was like, okay, 37 years, you got to have some wisdom to share.
Yes.
And he said, yes, I do. He said, you got to want to stay married. He said, it's a mutual commitment that both make to do things that it takes to make the relationship. Sacrifice and be willing to do those things together, even when you don't want to do some things sometimes.
That's great.
And I was like, okay, that's
great wisdom.
It is. And it was one that made me go, Sacrifice is definitely one that is very, very important, but also the point that he made at the very beginning.
You gotta both want it.
You gotta want it.
You gotta want it. You both have to want it.
We mentioned that in one of the early episodes of the series, our podcast was, we wanted to be married early. That was something that I wanted, and I held on to that. And especially when you find someone as great as you are to be married to, it makes it a whole lot easier. It makes it a whole lot more enjoyable.
You make it enjoyable for me.
So, do you have a question this week?
I do.
Okay.
Our question comes from Dershawn.
Oh, from
Brown.
Ken and Sean.
She asked the question after we stopped recording, and I thought it was a great question. Her question was, how do you get from where you guys were in the beginning to where you are right now?
Right. Actually, to answer that, I think Dwayne kind of already answered it. You gotta want it. Yeah. You gotta want it. You gotta sacrifice. You gotta be willing to make commitments. But I also think there's going to be a time where the two shall become one, which means there are going to be some things that you may have been doing in the past and that you have that are a part of who you are. I won't say purposely, but it's just the way you've been, especially as a single person, that once you become joined with someone else, there are going to be some things that you have to change. Change is going to always be a part of the relationship, and it doesn't mean you got to give up the essence of who you are as a person.
You want to be a better version of
absolutely
yourself.
And your spouse will definitely make you a better version of yourself, and improve
if you allow
exactly if you embrace it. But if you have in your mind that I'm good, ain't nothing wrong with me, nothing needs to change, or you like so much the way you are currently, but your spouse has issues with something, and you're not willing to
listen, concede,
or concession, or compromise, or sacrifice, or change, that's going to keep you stuck right where you're at. And we've worked with couples that have been married for a long time, but they've been almost stuck in a spot, and they reliving that same thing over and over and over again because neither one of them wanted to acquiesce or yield or not necessarily give in, but make that issue more important than their relationship. One of the things that I learned early was preservation of the relationship is more important than anything else.
It's more important than winning. And that's what Deshaun and Ken, losing in love.
Yes, that's
you have to be willing to lose. You have to realize that when you win in a marriage relationship, you don't really win. You really lose. And so I would say, if I had to say what got us to where we are right now, I would say it would be our relationship with God and our willingness to realize that the person that I'm married to, God loves you more than I ever could. And so if he loves you like that, I have to love you. And so I believe that we can't get close to anybody until we get close to the Lord.
that is something to think about.
Yes.
I appreciate the audience or everyone who sends in, got wisdom, got questions.
Yes.
We thank you for you guys sharing that information or sharing your wisdom, Dwayne and Deshaun, sending in a question or asking a question you probably didn't even know you were going to be on the show.
I know.
But you're there. And again, if you actually want to contribute to Got Wisdom, Got Questions, you can find us on a lot of different sources. richrelationshipsus.com, which is the website. You can find us. You can actually listen to the show on YouTube.
Yes, you can.
But you also can send the questions to our Gmail account at richrelationships.us@gmail.com. And that's for any questions or comments, or if you want to partake and share in the Got Wisdom, Got Questions.
Thank you.
Gil and Renee Beaver's over 30-year relationship is the genesis for the Rich Relationship Podcast, which is designed to empower individuals with the tools, principles, and the community needed to unpack ourselves, our past, and our preconceived notions associated with relationships.
Let's get empty and grow together so that our lives will be filled with love and healthy, rich relationships. Now let's go into our show.
So, part of this that I think this topic that we're talking about is after the honeymoon, sex expectations and intimacy. We kind of talked about some of the beginnings and some of the premarital things that you can do and conversations that you can have with people.
Now let's get to the good part.
The good part is some of the things to do to kind of improve the relationship. You know,
I thought Vershawn's question last week was very, it kind of alluded to it. How do you remain sexy when you've been married for so long?
Okay, how do you remain sexy?
Well, I answered that question in last week's show. So you should answer and listen to last week's show.
So that's something to think about if you want to do. So we answered some of the questions about premarital and gave you some ideas and some of the pitfalls and problems that you may have that could be hindering some of the sexual intimacy and sexual interactions that you may have in your marital relationship. We said that earlier about prefaced it to where we're speaking now specifically towards married relationships, because some of these things you can still do without being married that's going to contribute to the benefit of your relationship. But this now, what we're talking about, some of the things that we're going to share that can definitely improve the sexual interaction and the things that happen prior to. And I'm gonna say, and I want to hear some of your comments, Renee, on some of the things that I wrote them down just like they came to my mind.
Okay, good. I'm ready.
Remember, and this is something you taught me. Remember that foreplay is an all-day event.
Yes, baby.
What does that mean to you?
Well, and I think that's the thing. You know, I remember reading a book. Men are like waffles and women are like spaghetti. Mm-hmm. Men and women are just different. Just like you said.
What?
Yes, we are so different. And even when it comes anatomically, we're different. Psychologically, we're different. Emotionally, we're different. And then you take those differences and you take growing up and having some issues growing up. Mm-hmm. So that just throws a curveball in that whole thing.
Right. And
so to me, when I think of what it means to make love, what it means to, for me, it takes all day long. It can't be, hi, how you doing, get in bed. It has to be the kiss on the neck, the rub on the back, the phone call you call me going, mm-hmm. Those are the things that, because a part of it, I think, for women, because we are internal, we give so much that mm-hmm. we want to have someone that wants us.
Right.
And who desires us and who is pursuing us.
Right.
And so to me, those are the things that I think that make men and women different. Because for you, it could just be, I can walk into the room naked and you're ready. But for me...
So it takes a little bit more than that.
A little bit more than that.
A little bit more than that. You know, and this is something that you taught me early in our relationship. And I remember specifically, and it stood out, it was early in our marriage, and we had gotten in bed, and I had an agenda. I was like, yeah.
What? You got an agenda?
Boy,
you had a list, babe.
Yeah, I want to go all in that night. But, and you gave, just like in Corinthians said, you know, mm-hmm. authority, and you gave over your body, and obviously we made love. But one thing that you said after was, you know, I want us to make love before we get to bed.
Mm-hmm. And all day after.
And that kind of stuck in my mind. I was like, what are you talking about? And that's what this is really talking about.
It's like you're an enigma. You used to always say you're an enigma and a quandary.
All at the same time. But foreplay starts to literally all day, like you said. It begins with the things that are non-sexual, non-interaction. We're not naked. We're not in the bed. Right. It's like you said. It's the things that I come up behind you and kiss you on the neck, or I rub your head, or massage your head, or whatever it may be.
Or you lay on top of me and hug me before you go to work.
Yep, non-sexual touching. Right. That's very important. So that's something that to think about. These are things, especially, come on, fellas. We know when we were dating our wives, when we were coming up, we would be checking them out, and we would be doing all these different things to get on the good side.
Right.
You know, maybe it was with the expectations of something that would happen later, but you did some things.
Right.
You know, and this is something that also, and you can tell me if this is true or not. Men, if you want to get your wife in the mood, start with some chore play.
Chore play is good.
Do some dishes, do some cleaning up, do some things that can actually take some of the responsibility.
I like that. Chore play, baby. That's good.
Yeah, take some of the responsibility off of her. Like you just said, you have so many things going on, and you do so much, or whether it's around the house and with family and working and all those different things. And while we both are busy, I think you tend to do a little bit more, you know, because you do. I think so. You do. You know, I mean, the dynamics that we have to maintain our household. Yeah. You know, we both work hard, but I think women traditionally work a little bit harder, you know, at multiple things, maybe, you know, whether it's the family, the careers, the husband, the kids, and we both have those roles, but I think it's something that is very, very overlooked. You know, that's just what I believe. That's skill speak. That's just what I think. And I think that's something that we can do when it comes to taking things off. I think back to my mom, who actually taught me how to do all those things. Yeah, and I thank God for her because
she made you an amazing man.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that, but it was all her thinking ahead to say, I want to teach you how to do all these things, because maybe it was part of it because she was a single mom that she said, you know what, I want some help.
Right.
And to have a dude that can't even wash his own clothes, that's a problem.
It is.
It was a problem for her. So she said, you know what, I'm going to teach y'all little men how to wash. Me and my brother teach y'all how to wash when we were like 8. You know, and to this day, I still do my own laundry.
Yes, and I
don't want you doing it.
Let me give women. So you gave men 2 things. So let me give women 2 things. Okay, ladies, please do not wear ugly underwear and bra.
Say that again.
Ladies, please do not wear ugly underwear and bra. I remember we were dating, and you were like, "Baby, you cannot wear those bladder control underwear."
Did I say that for real?
Yes, you did.
How did that make you feel?
It just made me feel like I need to step my game up.
Your underwear game?
My underwear game. And so that helped me to know.
Because men, we're visual.
You communicate. So if we know men are visual, you don't have to have a perfect body, but your bra and your underwear should match.
And it doesn't have to be straight Victoria's Secret and G-string and all those types of things, but it should be very enticing.
Yes,
it should be very pretty to look at, you know.
And ladies, I'm going to tell you what my husband has told me. I don't know, maybe your husband is different. We like lace because we think men like lace, but my husband tells me that I like for things to be smooth, and lace is rough.
I don't like lace.
Yeah,
it's not.
And so a part of
it's pretty to look at, but
talk to your spouse.
Doesn't feel good to touch.
Find out what he likes.
It's very abrasive.
You know, and so that would be one thing.
One of those conversations.
And another thing is honor him.
What do you mean by that?
Tell him that he's great. Tell him that you respect and value him. Because for men thrive on honor and respect. And so take some time to find out something that he's doing, that he may be an area where he's struggling in, and build him up. Don't be his safe place, be his refuge, be the place where you're gonna be his cheerleader. You're gonna be telling him what he's good at, even if it's an area where he's struggling in. Reinforce in his heart that you got his back.
Okay, those are good, definitely.
Okay.
So you ready for another one?
Yes, I'm ready.
Great sex starts with getting better in areas outside of the bedroom.
Yes.
We talk about that in this episodes and all the episodes that we've done prior to that, like communication.
Right.
You know, you want to get better at your sex game. It starts with being able to communicate a little bit better, you know, before you get naked, so to speak. Also, serving each other.
Yes.
You know, you have to be a servant before you are served.
Right.
That's something that is very important, I think.
And I think that this is like, you know, I'm going to another lane.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to ask, I remember Aaron's teacher saying, hey, I need you to give me a gift for Teacher's Day. If you have to make me give you a gift, maybe you really don't deserve the gift.
Mm-hmm.
And so a part of it is that you have to make sure that you're not serving that person to get something.
Mm-hmm.
You should serve them out of the love that you have for them.
Right.
Not because I'm serving you, I did this for you. You shouldn't be keeping score.
Right. And because out of genuine thoughtfulness to
Right.
someone can pay huge
Yes.
dividends later on, guys, in the
Yes.
bedroom.
Yes. it
Being
does.
thoughtful.
And I believe that, and I believe that God made men the head for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that as men lead the way God designed them to, women will. I think that it makes your sex life better.
Right.
I think that women are more attractive when they have a husband that's loving on them and making deposits into them and prizing them. And so I think that it starts with the man, but I think that the woman is the helpmate.
Right.
Together you make it beautiful, not just one, but together.
And this is kind of a sidebar, a little bit still dealing with the same thing about outside of the bedroom. This is something that I think came into play that you have to guard against.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that you got to guard against. Kids play a huge part of your life if you have them.
Yes.
You know, if you're still single or you're married and you don't have any children, that's great.
Enjoy that.
Enjoy the time.
Enjoy that utopia.
Because when kids come along, they change the dynamics in so many different ways, from the physical aspect to women and their bodies and the things that happen just because of childbirth, but also the things that happen just with having kids around. You know, I think that's still one of your hindrances.
We were listening to this
where,
comedian. Oh my gosh, and he said something.
This is a secret. You're gonna tell about. Okay,
yes.
She's getting ready to give you a secret. You may want to write this down. If you have kids,
oh my gosh,
and you are very how would
verbal.
you say inhibited when it comes to sex. You don't want to hear them you don't want your kids to hear you making noise. This is something that you can do that will totally change
be a game
the game.
changer for
Go
you.
ahead, share it with them.
Put some shoes in the dryer, man. When I heard him say that was the funniest thing. But it's so true, because for me, I think that you worried about, and men don't care, because I remember we went home once, and you're like, come on, baby, let's make love. I'm like, on the sofa sleeper in the hallway? Your mother's in one room, your grandmother's in another room. You're like, I don't care. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe
It's my wife.
that
Man.
you want to make love in the living room, and they can walk through there. It was like a challenge to you, but to me, I'm like, when we get caught, I'm going to be that girl having sex.
But you were my wife.
I know, but still, it was
So
So men
the-
and women are just different.
Yes.
And so women
But
need the safety, the security, and quiet, and
the shoes in the dryer.
the shoes in the dryer. I'm telling you, it's a game changer.
So, but that kind of goes into the last area that we're going to talk about during this episode was have fun
Yeah.
and still make it a priority.
Yes.
You want to
Make
comment on that one?
time for love.
I wrote exactly those words down because I knew you were going to say
Yeah,
that.
you gotta make
Sex
time
is
for love.
supposed to be fun.
It is.
It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be enjoyable.
And it's something you both agree on. As far as what you will and will not do, the Bible says that the sex bed is undefiled. So whatever you both agree on as a couple, different positions, toys, oral sex, those are decisions that you as a couple have to make. You can't force
The other one to-
It has to be something you both agree on. And so that means you have to have open communication.
Yep.
And so communication, you're going to realize that most of the reason you're like, well, if we had sex, we would talk. No. If you talk, you'll have sex.
Yep.
And you won't have good sex. You won't have a good, healthy love-making life if you don't communicate with one
Right.
another.
And you have to think about what got you excited about each other. And guess what? All you got to do is do it.
Yeah.
Just remember and go back to doing the things that got you where you want to get.
Right. Always got an agenda, huh?
Yes, you do. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I do.
Yes,
but
we
we
do.
can keep talking about this, and we definitely are going to revisit this topic because we're going to get more into it, and maybe we're going to have some other people come on and talk
ask
about
some questions.
Yes,
and all those
absolutely.
good things.
Because sex is one of those things that it needs to be brought out into the light, and
it's
and
beautiful.
it's not
It's
a bad
healthy.
thing. Yes,
it's beautiful. It's a gift from God to married couples.
So it's going to be fun.
Yes,
it should be fun.
And it is fun.
And guess what, y'all? We'll talk to y'all later because we can go have fun. No, I'm just joking. Thanks again.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Bye.
And remember, we're stronger together.
Let's grow.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for your investment in time. Remember to subscribe to the show and hit the notification icon to be notified when new episodes are posted on the podcast platform that you're listening from.
Or you can always find us on our website at richrelationshipsus.com or our YouTube channel, Rich Relationships with Gil and Renee. If you found this podcast helpful or you think it could help someone that you know and care about, please pass it along and share it with them.
And also, you can always send your questions and comments to richrelationships.us@gmail.com. This is a weekly podcast, and the new episodes are going to be posted on Monday by 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Remember, we're stronger together.
Let's grow.